is nothing, oh nothing, nothing to fear. There is nothing, oh nothing, nothing to fear. The idea for today simply states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions, but illusions are not facts. Illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing, nothing to fear. There is nothing, nothing to fear. There is nothing, nothing to fear. In truth, there is nothing to fear. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I'm Forgiveness Willie, teaching forgiveness from the Ozarks, out here on my place in front of a black locust tree. You'll always see these polypore, or what they call cracked cap polypores. They're smooth on the bottom. They grow often on the black locust, the Robinia pseudoacacia, and they were used, and they still are. You can blow up, get them dry, and then light them with fire and keep them blowing on them, and they'll keep an ember going for a long, long time, so you can transport a fire. Anyway, this is the fungus that was used for that. There's probably others that were used for that too. In folk medicine, it's been used for an anti-inflammatory and as an immune booster, and certain spiritual practices, I noticed. Anyway, that fungus is called, if you want to know the fungus name, it's the Fulviformes robinia. I mean, probably because it lives on the Robinia species. Anyway, just a little bit. Thank you for joining me. I'm Forgiveness Willie, teaching forgiveness from the Ozarks, as well as what I'm learning about my black locusts. I'm trying to propagate them by root cuttings or maybe by seeds. I'm just not sure yet. I'm out here just kind of figuring out how I wanted to get 100 of them started, and I wasn't really sure how to do it, so I'm out here exploring. There is nothing to fear. We're reading from the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles today, Lesson 48, for Monday, February the 17th of 2025. It's actually the 14th for me, Valentine's Day. The idea for today simply states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions, but illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing to fear. It is very easy to recognize this, but it is very difficult to recognize it for those who want illusions to be true. Today's practice periods will be very short, very simple, and very frequent. Merely repeat the idea as often as possible. There is nothing to fear. You can use it with your eyes open at any time and in any situation. It is strongly recommended, however, that you take a minute or so whenever possible to close your eyes and repeat the idea slowly to yourself several times. And we'd say, there is nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. It is particularly important that you use the idea immediately should anything disturb your peace of mind. Something disturbs your peace of mind, so you tell yourself, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. The presence of fear is a sure sign that you're trusting in your own strength. The awareness that there is nothing to fear shows that somewhere in your mind, though not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet, you have remembered God and let His strength take the place of your weakness. The instant you are willing to do this, there is indeed nothing to fear. Let God's strength take over our decisions. Let Let's not let our own strength lead the way. Let's let God's strength lead the way. Then we can truly say, there is nothing to fear. When I am weak, then am I strong. Okay, let's go take a look in our text reading, and we're in chapter 6, the lessons of love. And we read we read paragraph 7 yesterday. So let's begin with paragraph 8. I'm sorry when my brothers do not share my decision to hear only one voice, because it weakens them as teachers and as learners. We want to hear the Holy Spirit speak in ourselves and in our brothers and in everyone. Yet I know they cannot really betray themselves or me, and that it is still on them that I must build my church. Of course, he's referring to something that was recorded to Jesus saying about that on this rock I'd build my church in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18. There is no choice in this. Only you can be the foundation of God's church. There can be no choice in this because only you can be the foundation of God's church. A church is where an altar is, and the presence of the altar is what makes the church holy. And we can change the word altar to devotions, because back in chapter 5, Roman numeral 2, I think paragraph 8, he talks about that an altar is a devotion. So anyway, so let's keep that in mind as we read this. A church that does not inspire love has a hidden altar that is not serving the purpose for which God intended it. I must found his church on you because those who accept me as a model are literally my disciples. Disciples are followers. And if the model they follow has chosen to save them pain in all respects, they are unwise not to follow him. 9. I elected for your sake and mine to demonstrate that the most outrageous assault, as judged by the ego, does not matter. As the world judges these things, but not as God knows them, I was betrayed, abandoned, beaten, torn, and finally killed. It was clear that this was only because of the projection of others onto me, since I had not harmed anyone and had healed many. 10. We are still equal as learners, although we do not need to have equal experiences. The Holy Spirit is glad when you can learn from my experiences and be reawakened by my experiences. That is the only purpose. Oh, that is their only purpose. And that is the only way in which I can be perceived as the way, the truth, and the life. And that was a quote that Jesus was recorded as saying in John 14, verse 6. When you hear only one voice, you are never called on to sacrifice. Wow, because it's an integrated voice. It would never be in conflict, which would have to be in conflict in order to use the concept of sacrifice. When you hear only the Holy Spirit's voice, the one voice, you're never called on to sacrifice. On the contrary, by being able to hear the Holy Spirit in others, you can learn from their experiences and can gain from them without experiencing them directly yourself. That is because the Holy Spirit is one, and anyone who listens is inevitably led to demonstrate his way for all. 11. You are not persecuted, nor was I. You are not asked to repeat my experiences because the Holy Spirit whom we share makes this unnecessary. To use my experiences constructively, however, you must still follow my example in how to perceive them. My brothers and yours are constantly engaged in justifying the unjustifiable. My one lesson which I must teach as I learned it is that no perception that is out of the accord with the judgment of the Holy Spirit can be justified. My one lesson which I must teach as I learned it is that no perception that is out of accord with the judgment of the Holy Spirit can be justified. I undertook to show this was true in an extreme case, merely because it would serve as a good teaching aid to those whose temptation to give in to anger and assault would not be so extreme. I will with God that none of his sons should suffer. Okay. Paragraph 2. This is, I meant to say that this is the message of the crucifixion is this whole section we're reading, that we'd made it to paragraph 7 yesterday. Now we're at paragraph 12. The crucifixion cannot be shared because it is the symbol of projection, but the resurrection is the symbol of sharing, because the reawakening of every son of God is necessary to enable the sonship to know its wholeness. Only this is knowledge. The message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. The message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Even in the face of what appeared to be an attack by some sons of God on another sons of God, he didn't respond to that illusion, to that betrayal, to that persecution. Instead, he realized that he only wanted to teach love, so he was unwilling to see attack. Teach only love, for that is what you are. If you interpret the crucifixion in any other way, you're using it as a weapon for assault rather than as the call for peace for which it was intended. The apostles often misunderstood it, and for the same reason that anyone misunderstands it. Their own perfect love made them vulnerable to Their own imperfect love made them vulnerable to projection, and out of their own fear, they spoke of the wrath of God as his retaliatory weapon. Nor could they speak of the crucifixion entirely without anger, because their sense of guilt had made them angry. And if you wanted to do a little deeper dive in the Bible about that, look at Luke 9:54, John 3:36, John 18:10 and 11. Paragraph 15. These are some of the examples of upside-down thinking in the New Testament, although its gospel is really only the message of love. If the apostles had not felt guilty, they never could have quoted me as saying, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. And that was the quote that he's saying now that they made incorrectly, recorded in the Bible in Matthew 10:34 and 36. This is clearly the opposite of everything I taught. Nor could they have described my reactions to Judas as they did if they had really understood me. I could not have said, Betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss? Unless I believed in betrayal. The whole message of the crucifixion was simply that I did not believe in betrayal. And you can read about that in Luke chapter 22, verse 48. The punishment I was said to have called forth upon Judas was a similar mistake. And you can read that in Matthew chapter 26, verse 24. Judas was my brother and a son of God, as much a part of the sonship as myself, says Yeshua. Was it likely that I would condemn him when I was ready to demonstrate that condemnation is impossible? 16. As you read the teachings of the apostles, remember that I told them myself that there was much they would understand later, because they were not wholly ready to follow me at the time. And he said that recorded in John chapter 13, verse 7. I do not want you to allow any fear to enter into the thought system toward which I am guiding you. I do not call for martyrs, but for teachers. No one is punished for sins. and the sons of God are not sinners. Any concept of punishment involves the projection of blame and reinforces the idea that blame is justified. The result is a lesson in blame, for all behavior teaches the beliefs that motivate it. The crucifixion was the result of clearly opposed thought systems, the perfect symbol of the, in quotes, conflict between the ego and the Son of God. And the reason that's in quotes is because there's really no conflict from the Holy Spirit's perception. And so that's the reality is there is no conflict. But from the ego's perception, there is a conflict between itself and a threat that it doesn't understand, which is the Holy Spirit. The conflict seems just as real now, and its lessons must be learned now as well as then. 17. I do not need gratitude, but you need to develop your weakened ability to be grateful, or you cannot appreciate God. We need to develop our weakened ability to be grateful. He does not need your appreciation, but you do. You need to appreciate God because you need to learn to increase your ability to appreciate. You cannot love what you do not appreciate, for fear makes appreciation impossible. When you are afraid of what you are, you do not appreciate it, and will therefore reject it. As a result, you will teach rejection, which is not what we want to teach. We want to learn to teach only love, for that is what we are. Paragraph 18. The power of the sons of God is present all the time because they were created as creators. Their influence on each other is without limit and must be used for their joint salvation. Each one must learn to teach that all forms of rejection are meaningless. Let's remember that one. Each one, all of us, must learn to teach that all forms of rejection are meaningless. The separation is the notion of rejection. As long as you teach this, you will believe it. This is not as God thinks, and you must think as He thinks if you are to know Him again. We want to learn to start thinking like God thinks so that we can know God again. And the last paragraph for this section, 19. Remember that the Holy Spirit is the communication link between God the Father and His separated sons. Well, there's another definition of the Holy Spirit, the communication link between God the Father and His separated sons, the one voice. If you will listen to His voice, you will know that you cannot either hurt or be hurt, and that many need your blessing to help them hear this for themselves. They need for you to remember to hear the one voice so they can learn to hear it. When you perceive only this need in them, many need your blessing to help them hear the one voice for themselves. When you perceive only this need in them and do not respond to any other, you will have learned of me and will be as eager to share your learning as I am. What would Jesus do? Well, He hear the one voice in His brothers, not hear the voice of attack. Let's sing that portion there about the message of the crucifixion. Message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. The message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. The message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Each one must learn to teach that all forms of rejection are meaningless. Each one must learn to teach that all forms of rejection are meaningless. You must think as God thinks if you are to know Him again. Listen to the one voice of the Holy Spirit and all your brothers. Then you will know you cannot hurt or be hurt. And many need your blessing to hear this for themselves. The message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. The message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. And each one must learn to teach that all forms of rejection, all forms of rejection are meaningless. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. Okay, and remember today, once you realize that you'll be able to, once you realize that and hold it close, then you'll be able to your lesson will make much more sense. Nothing, or there is nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. Okay, what's going on today? Lunar New Year, or Chinese New Year, or Korean New Year. For Confucianism, Taoism, and many Buddhists, it's the Lunar New Year. So Happy New Year. Ramadan begins for the Islamics at sundown tonight. It's Fat Tuesday, also known as Shrove Tuesday or Mardi Gras. And let's see, it's also Falguna Amavasya, also known as Samavati Amava Sai. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Anyway, Hindu celebration today. And out of edible landscapings, I also found Analog to Digital TV Day, Champion Crab Races Day, International Pancake Day, My Way Day, Cafe a la Day, is that with milk? Indian Pudding Day, kind of a cornmeal pudding to thicken up your, I think they used cornmeal to make it, and molasses. PTA Founders Day, of course they probably would have used, what would they have used for sweetener? Native Americans didn't use a lot of sweeteners, fruits. Public Science Day, Tennis Pro Day, Puniki Day, which is a Polish pastry. The Punchki Day, Punchki. Random Acts of Kindness Day, that ought to be every day. Travel Africa Day, Who Shall I Be Day. Of course, you're going to be a love being, because that's who you are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. And what is that? World Human Spirit Day. And it's Cabbage Day. The Brassica oleracea, let me tell you about a cabbage, one I like to grow, is called the Jersey Early Jersey Wakefield. This early maturing variety is delicious eaten fresh. The conical, solid, tightly held heads grow up to 15 inches long and 7 inches wide and weigh 3 to 4 pounds each. A historic variety, this cabbage was first grown in the United States by Francis Brill of Jersey City, New Jersey in 1840. It's a 60 to 75 day from transplant. And I read to you that out of Seed Savers Exchange, which they also have the Eldon Felton Dark, well, that's a collard, a red calaboose cabbage, the Copenhagen Market cabbage, and the Premium Late Flat Dutch, and the Jernigan Yellow cabbage, the Old Time Blue cabbage. Anyway, cabbage and collards are both Brassica oleracea. They have some collards on the same page. I also wanted to tell you, we have time for, I guess we have time. You can do the Nanking Red Bush Cherry out of Edible Landscaping. Yesterday we did the Cherapooji Nanking Red Bush Cherry. Today it's the Nanking Red Bush Cherry, which is also a Prunus tomentosa. And it says that the same bush-type characteristics of Nanking White, ripe fruits are juicy, subacid to sweet, eaten raw and preserved. At the Edwell Park in downtown Asheville, North Carolina, kids love them fresh from the bush. Not always self-fertile. To ensure fruit set, plant 2, space 6 feet. For landscape effect, Japanese plums bloom, overlap Nanking cherry. Zones 3 through 7. Okay, well, let's. What else? Oh, out of edible, or out of those that are reading the original edition, you multiple year students, read chapter 6, section 1, the message of the crucifixion. In the Bible, read chapter 4 of Luke. In Jesus talks with Satan in that, and other things. Iyengar Yoga, read, which is the 64 and 65. Stick with the extended chest stretch. See if you can get that down really good. And out of Course of Love, chapter 12, paragraphs 1 through 10. And chapter 12 is the origin of separation. Okay, well, let's close with our song, and be sure to keep this idea going all day today. There is nothing to fear, nothing to fear. There is nothing, oh nothing, nothing to fear. There is nothing, oh nothing, nothing to fear. The idea for today simply states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions. But illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing to fear. 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 And let's take from our word for peace from Sanskrit of India, Shanti. Shanti be with you. There is nothing to fear. Shanti.